Well, hello there. Welcome once more to Contour's Kitchen. And if this is your first time stopping by, I would like to say a very warm akaba to you. Today I'm sharing with you the recipe for my make ahead tomato stew. And this comes very handy. Once you have this already made, you can whip up your jollof in a breeze. You can make your waakye. You just need to add your meat and your stock to the stew and you're done. This is just as perfect for your plain rice. I hope you enjoy this recipe. So for this recipe, you need some curry. I have here some smoked paprika, some shrimp tablets. These are Maggi tablets. Some fresh bay leaves. You could use dried ones as well. Some peppers. I have a combination from my garden and paposhito. Coriander or cilantro seeds. Some anise, star anise, and some black peppercorns. I also have some tomato paste, garlic. This is going to be a big batch of stew, so everything is in large quantities. I have my shallot onions, regular onions, my oil, that is 4 cups of oil. I have my tomatoes, and this I weighed as well, and I'm going to include everything in the description box for you. Everything in the right quantities will be in the description box for you. So I'll start by pouring my cooking oil into my cooking pot, and whilst these heat up, I'm going to cut up my shallots, and these I'm going to fry in the oil. So once I'm done cutting up these shallots, I'm just going to add them to the oil, which is hot at the moment. And this I'm just going to let it cook all the way through until it really caramelizes. So whilst this is cooking, I'm also going to go ahead and prep some of my other ingredients. And you are welcome to prep all your ingredients before you start. But I cook fast, so this helps me, it saves me time, I think, when I do it this way. But you could always prep everything first. So I'm cutting up these onions or chopping them up. And these I'm going to blend with my peppers and other ingredients to go into the stew. So I have my garlic and my peppers in the blender already. And now I'm adding my onions. I add in some water, and now I'm just going to blend this, and this is just going to be your spicy aromatic. Those peppers from my garden, you heard Anaba talk about it, they smell so good. So whatever you cook it with, just be assured, like, the aroma is just gonna be perfect. It smells good and it is very spicy. So this is a pot of spicy stew. And look at these onions. They really caramelize. They look perfect. And that is going to assure you that your stew, there's flavors in this stew is going to be layered right from the beginning. So I added in my blended peppers, garlic, onions, and now I rinsed out the blender, added the juices, and I've added my 4 fresh bay leaves in here. And this, I'm going to let it cook on a gentle low heat. You don't want to rush this. You want this to take its sweet time to cook to perfection. And I added my 2-star anise, and I'm just going to stir again for it to just be mixed up in here and to get a chance to cook. And this, like I said, is going to cook slowly and gently. So I have here my smoked paprika, and this, is going to bring some smokiness into your stew. It is spicy as well. So it's just going to make your stew like that perfect, authentic Ghanaian tomato stew. And look at the color. It just brightened up everything. It brought some color in here already, even without me adding any tomatoes. And just look at that. Just look at that. It smells amazing. And right here, I'm just going to go ahead and toast these spices. So I have my fresh peppercorns in here first, my anise, and my coriander or cilantro seeds. And all these I'm just going to toast on a very gentle heat, just so they start to smell very good and you can actually see them toast. So this is going to be about 3 to 4 minutes on, a very low setting. And I started off with the pan, the frying pan being hot. So every now and then I stir. I give it a jiggle just like this, just to make sure I'm not burning anything. And I'm just going to do this until, look at this, the color change. The fragrance is just amazing. And at this point, this is just pretty much ready for me to blend. But I'm just going to go ahead and stir just a little bit more, like as if it's going to make any difference, bring in some more air. Maybe it will, And now I think this is good enough. I'm just going to go ahead and give it one more jiggle, turn off the flame, Then transfer this onto another dish or plate. You want to do this because, you know, the pot is hot, and even though you've turned down the flame, if you let these sit in here, they're going to burn because that residual heat will still continue to cook it. So I'm just letting this cool a little bit, and then when it's all cool, I'm going to grind it in my spice blender. And you're welcome to blend it in your regular blender or in your earthenware pot if that helps you, if you have that. But I have this blender and it helps to make my spices. You know, this comes very handy for me when I'm making my shito. You know, I'm a shito seller, yeah, the shito lady. So this is perfect, and I'm just going to make sure it blends until it's very smooth, powdery, and then this goes into the stew as well. Just think about that. All those aromas, the taste of this stew promises to be amazing. If you're not convinced already, well, I hope this does it for you. Now I'm just going to go ahead and pour this into the stew. So there we go. Give it a stir. And at this point, I'm thinking my stew could use a lot more of oil. Remember, this is a big batch of stew we're preparing. And so I'm going to add 3 more cups of cooking oil in here now, because I've not even added the tomato paste, nor my tomato puree, my homemade tomato puree that I made. And if you were wondering where that came from, there's a video for you. So I'm going to attach that in here as well. And that, once it's cooked like that, this big pot of stew is not going to take that long to make, you know. So I hope you try that as well, so your stew making is going to be in a breeze. So I've added my tomato paste, and that is like 2 pounds of tomato paste in here. That's a lot of tomato paste, but like I said, it's a big batch of stew you're making, and once you're done making this stew, you're pretty much assured to have enough stew for at least 2 months, and that is for my family of 5. And it includes when we have guests or anything. I'm just assured. So, you know, your house gets all these aromas, especially those of us living outside, you know, abroad. You know how it is. Like when you cook one little thing, your whole house, downstairs, upstairs, garage, everywhere, you can smell your food. So you make this one time, you know, and you neutralize the others once you're done. These are in the freezer. You clean up your stovetop, your countertop, all the mess, and you're good to go for as long as 2 months. It could even last you longer, depending on how much you make and the number of people in your family. So I'm going to let this tomato paste continue to cook, and it's going to cook on a low heat, so it's going to take its sweet time. You want this stew not to be rushed at all. You want the flavors to be, you know, well layered and, you know, well embossed into the stew. So there's no need rushing this. That tomato has already been cooked. The hardest part of this stew is already done. So there's really no point rushing it. Let it take its sweet time to cook. So I keep stirring every now and then because you don't want to burn your stew. And so that is what I'm just doing now. And I'll continue to do that and let this cook for about 20 minutes, 24 minutes of cooking your tomato paste on its own with all the other ingredients except your tomato puree. And now about 20 minutes later, I'm adding my tomato puree. That is my homemade. You see how thick it is? And that actually, I cooked it in this same pot, almost full. I only took a little bowl on the side. So this is very concentrated. This is like a real concentrate, almost as thick as the tomato paste itself. And so it has no liquid in it. And in no time at all, this stew is going to be good, well cooked, and very browned. So I really encourage you to check out that tomato based video, and that will help you to make this stew in a breeze. So now that this is in here, it is just going to be cooking as gently as it can. I'll constantly be coming in to stir, and it's going to cook pretty much until I want this to be dark, you know, like very well cooked, very browned. You can say what in toast abomo, what abomo na, like with a typical Asante or any Ghanaian says ochi stew now, like, you know, you didn't just cook it. You made sure it cooked and darkened and browned. And that is typically how your party jollof is made, your party tomato stew is made, and that is what we are trying to do today. So bear with me, it's a lengthy video, but I wanted you to also have an idea of how long it takes to make this stew, you know. So every now and then I come in and stir it, and I think I have just enough oil just enough oil. But one trick I want to give you, like if you were really trying to rush this, you were trying to make a big pot of jollof and you didn't have time, you would add more oil. I would pretty much add about 3 more cups of oil so that the stew cooks faster because the oil helps to fry everything. And once you're done, you could just skim off some of the oil, set it aside, and do something with it another day. But this is a make ahead stew. I made this stew with nothing in mind. Like, trust me, I just made it to freeze it and to have peace of mind in the coming weeks. So there's no point rushing. I really have enough time, so I don't need to fry it that way. But if ever you needed to make a big pot of stew, that is a tip for you, and I hope that is helpful to you. So it's been about 30 minutes of cooking the sauce from when I added the tomato, my homemade puree, and I've added in my 3 Maggi tablets crushed in here, and I'm just going to stir. You're welcome to omit this or use any bouillon or seasoning cube of choice. And so I'm going to keep stirring this. I'm not adding any salt to this stew at all because this is a base stew. So whenever you're going to cook with it, whatever portion of it you want to cook with it once it's cooked, if I wanted to make goat stew, the stock that I'll add in here, most of my meat is so well seasoned mostly that when I make stew, once I pour my stock in there, I really don't need to add salt. So I don't want to add any salt at all to make my stew salty, if any. And this is a big tip for you. I really didn't need to do this, but I've added a spoon of baking soda in here, and that is to make sure that if there was any acidity in your stew, like the case tomato stew, no, like it has this bite, it has this sharpness to it. Once you add the baking soda to it and you stir, I hope you saw when I stirred, you saw all those bubbles that came. They're still on the edges right now. That is supposed to be some of that acidity or sharpness, being brought to the surface, and it's going to evaporate or cook off. Back in the day, we would have used Kenway or potash, and that is potassium carbonate, and that we've come to know is not good or healthy for us. So the baking soda achieves the same results, and you can use that if ever you have that kind of sharpness in your stew. I pretty much don't encounter that here, but I surely did encounter that several times back home in Ghana. And so I am tempted to say it pretty much depends on the kind of tomatoes or where they were grown. But if ever you ever have that problem, wherever you are, do try the baking soda. It really works. So I've added a cup of water in here to the stew, and that is to thin it out a little bit more because I want it to cook even longer. I want the stew to really take its time to cook and be well fried. Mepɛ sɛ stew no mu kye frɔeɛ na mepɛ sɛ ɛkye ankasa. So thinning it out gives it a little bit more time to cook more, to be, it's gonna cook, but it's not, you don't want it to be rushed. So I thin it out with just a little bit of water, and so it's gonna cook slowly and come back to where it is, and then I'm even going to cook it a little bit longer to darken. And so at this point, you can see it's frying beautifully, and you want to continue coming in to stir every now and then until it is perfectly cooked. And this smells so good. It's been about 2.5 hours of cooking this stew. It is all done, perfectly made, well fried. perfect for all your tomato-based recipes that you can think of, to make your rice and stew, for your waakye. Just look at the color. Just look at this. This is going to make you your best waakye stew that you ever had. All you need is some tripe, some yomadia in there, your stock. Just add it in here, and the flavors of this stew is just going to be amazing. So I covered the stew and let it sit for a little over 24 hours, like one full day and a little extra before I got around to complete this video. And that is pretty much what happens back home. When we make stews for weddings and funerals, parties, mostly these occur on Saturdays. The stew is made like on a Thursday, and we let it sit somewhere in a corner between Thursday and Saturday when we serve the guest. And because it's so well cooked, well fried, this is almost like shito. You don't need to come to it every day and warm it up or anything. It can last a few days without going bad. So if ever you want to make a recipe for a party, I hope this helps. You don't need to refrigerate it. So far as it's this well cooked, especially in this cold weather now, this is perfect. So the one that I put in the glass bowl is what I used to make the party jollof video, and I hope you check it out. And every one of these plastic bowls has enough stew to last my family a week worth of jollof, waakye stew, or stew for plain rice and stew. This really is a time saver, and I hope you are able to give this a try. And until I come your way next time with something delicious, be loving, be kind, be happy.